to the next lecture on communication, and we were doing types of communication. So far in communication, we've discussed the communication types that were based on formality, party, media, and others. And then we also discussed that only 7% of the communication that we're making is verbal. Rest 93% is contributed by the non-verbal aspect of it. And when it comes to non-verbal, 38% of that 93% is paralanguage. That is the way we say things, and the remaining will be only based on kinesics and proxemics. Let us go ahead from that particular slide to discussing as to what exactly are nonverbal aspects of communication like paralanguage, kinesics, and proxemics. Paralanguage. This happens to be one of the components of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication which would not use any words to express means the meaning of the word would not be considered as communication. It is the way you are speaking that word. Though we are using words, but then it is the way that the person focuses on to know the meaning of that particular thing that has been communicated. So that way with which you're saying things, how you say what you say, is paralanguage. So this paralanguage, suppose I have this sentence, I never said that. Now there can be a number of ways in which you can speak or read these. Suppose I read it as I never said that. So it is I never said that means I am stressing on the fact, on the word I. So where am I emphasizing on this particular word I. Now because I am now emphasizing on I, it would mean I did not say it. I never said that means I never said it. Maybe you're mistaken. You maybe there could be somebody else who would have said it. Right? With that kind of intention, if I have to speak, I will stress more on I. I never said that. Right? Now the next sentence. I never said that. So I never said that means now I am laying more emphasis on the word never. So never would mean at no time did I ever say that. What makes you think that I would have? Or I did. So I never said that means at no point in time did I say this. Right? And then if I shift my emphasis from never to suppose that. I never said that. And this is something very usual that we come across. I never said that means मेरा मतलब वो नहीं था. That would mean I did not say it in so many words, or maybe I did not mean it, and maybe I would have, or maybe I would have implied it, but I did not say it the way you're quoting. So that would be I never said that. So the moment I say I never said that, or I never said that, or I never said that, I need not explain to you the meaning of the things that I'm saying. The moment I am putting emphasis on any of the component of the sentence, it will be clear to you with the way I'm putting it across to you. It will be clear to you as to what does that sentence of mine mean. So I need not explain to you. Having said that, I never said that. I don't have to back it up with the statement that I never said that means at no given point in time I said this. Maybe what makes you think that I said it, right? So you need not explain things. The emphasis that you're putting, the intonation that you're giving to your speech, the speed with which you're speaking, the volume with which you're speaking, the pitch that you're adopting, the pronunciation, the enunciation, every other thing counts here. Counts here means every other thing will be a factor on which the meaning of the things that you're saying will be dependent on. So this is what is paralanguage. How you're saying things, whatever you're saying becomes paralanguage, and this how factor will make the audience understand the meaning of the words that you're saying. Though the words are same, I never said that, it is the same kind of words and spellings I have written. There is no kind of homophonic word here, but still the meaning differs because I'm putting emphasis on different words in different sentences that I'm speaking. Therefore, the way you're speaking things defines paralanguage. There are four components to paralanguage. Voice qualifiers, wherein we'll be defining the qualities of voice like volume, rate of speech, pitch, rhythm, pronunciation, and enunciation. Then we have voice qualifiers, any kind of temporary change that you're making to the qualities of voice like pitch, volume, and rate of speech. So these will be the temporary change in these three qualities will be termed as voice qualifiers. Then we have voice characteristics. Voice characteristics would mean that there are certain sounds that we are making, and those sounds they convey a meaning. For example, if I start crying, you would know that I'm feeling bad about something bad has happened, maybe there is a loss that has occurred. So this is the crying, the sound that I'm making will tell you things. I don't have to tell you that yes, what is it or what am I feeling. I all of a sudden start laughing. Maybe if and this is a normal thing, maybe there is somebody who's glued to the mobile phone and all of a sudden the fingers are moving and the person is smiling. You know that there is something interesting that the person is reading, therefore the person is smiling. So likewise, if the person is has started laughing all of a sudden, would mean that he would have read something which has made him smile at this or maybe laugh at that. So laughter would tell you that yes, the person is excited about something or is happy about something. Likewise, if you are sighing, suppose this lecture got over, you were in no mood to go through the lecture, and the moment the lecture is over, you will all be like, so it's a sigh of relief. The moment I hear this sound, I know that you were not in a mood, and now you are relaxed that yes, that finally the lecture is over. So that is sighing. The noise that we produce as a sigh will tell the recipient or will tell the other party the meaning of that expression. Again, the clearing of throat. So clearing of throat again would have a certain specific meaning depending upon where you're doing it. Suppose I'm a kavi and I'm in a kavi sammelan, and I this is my turn to speak, so I'm clearing my throat so that my voice goes out in a better way. If I am a student and there's a faculty who's asking me a certain question, I get up reluctantly and then I clear my throat. Would mean that I'm buying time. I'm not very sure of the answer, therefore maybe I'm using that particular sound. So that way, or maybe you're whistling. So you're on the road, fingers crossed. I don't think this generation would ever do this, but then okay, just as an example. So you were there on the road. I would not define the gender of that you. Both the genders for me are equal here. So you're there on the road, somebody very appealing, handsome or smart or pretty passes by and you start to whistle. So there, that whistle also will convey a certain meaning. That again is a sound. And maybe while whistling, the person looking at whom you were trying to whistle, the person turns towards you, gives you a tight slap, and you'll say ah. That means it's a groan. That ah that you say is telling the other person that yes, you're hurt and the person is satisfied now, right? So these are vocal characteristics. And then we have vocal fillers and vocal segregators. These are certain words that are really not required in the speech. There are certain words that are fillers that will have meaning, but then even if you do without them, the communication that you're trying to make will be equally effective. For example, maybe there are people who are in the habit of saying right after every sentence. I explained this to you yesterday, right? Did you understand that? You say yes. Okay, then in that case, let's move ahead, right? So, right is one of the fillers that people often use after the completion of one sentence before the start of another, so that that awkward pause that creeps in between the two sentences gets filled up. Also we have segregates. So these segregates are nothing but meaningless things that we use in the speech. For example, there is a girl who's looking at a certain, maybe there's a very cute baby and the sound gets produced, oh. So this all that is produced is nothing but a segregate. So this is a segregate that we're talking about. These are meaningless words. Absolutely no room for such words in a speech, because you're doing nothing but maybe you're expressing through that. Maybe it is considered as an interjection there. But even if you use some other meaningful word there to express an interjection, yes, of course that will be more taken, right? Or for example, suppose I ask you a certain question and you get up, you don't know the answer, you say so this or kind of noise also are termed as vocal segregates. They have absolutely no meaning, so they should be avoided as far as possible. So these are the components of paralanguage. Let us discuss each component in detail now. Let us have a look at the voice qualities. So as discussed in the previous slide, we discussed that voice qualities can be like volume, rate of speech, pitch, rhythm, pronunciation, and enunciation. Now we'll take one quality at a time. Volume. So if I talk loudly, all of a sudden, suppose I start talking very loudly, it could mean that I'm trying to attract somebody's attention towards me, right? Suppose you're an attention seeker, you're going on the road, nobody's caring to you going, or maybe even if you're passing by or not, and you want everybody to see you, maybe because you're wearing a Gucci and a Prada and XYZ brands, and because you want everybody's attention, what you would do is you'll start shouting without considering the consequences, that maybe people will feel that okay, this is a rich mad, right? Maybe without thinking of those consequences, you just started to shout. Or maybe you were walking with somebody and you all of a sudden you increased your tone and your volume, and people now looked at you, oh god, who's this? So there you try to attract the attention. Usually this is the case, but then there are people who normally talk in a loud voice, but then whenever we meet such people who have loud voice, that voice which is loud is very disturbing and annoying at times. You really can't take that particular loud decibel voice all the time. Therefore, the voice that you have, the volume that you keep or you give to your voice, has to be always subtle. It has to be moderate. If it is high, would mean either you're trying to attract attention or you are annoying and disturbing to the people. If it is low, if it is very softer than it has to be, then in that case maybe the people might think that either you're very less confident, you're weak, there'll be an impression of weakness created in their minds for you. Or maybe it could also tell the other party that yes, because the person is very using a low volume or a soft volume, then maybe the person is relaxed and calm and is an authority, because somebody who's authoritative need not increase the volume every time. If the person is adopting a lower voice, then also because it is then having a lot of gravity, the people will take it as an authority. So depending upon the setup or the setting you are at, you will have to choose the volume of the speech that you're delivering. If it is too high, all of a sudden it is an attention seeking behavior. If it is usually too high, in that case it could be disturbing and annoying, you need to curb it down. And then if it is softer than it has to be, in that case it is an impression of weakness. If it is soft, it would, in a business setting, if it is soft, it would mean that yes, the person is authoritative yet calm and composed, maintaining the demeanor of or the decorum, right? And then we switch to rate of speech. So ideally, rate of speech is the number of words that we're speaking in a minute. That is rate of speech. So here, ideally, after a lot of study that was done on a lot of people, it was found out that ideally 150 words a minute is the rate of speech, which is a standard rate of speech. If there are people who are talking at a rate of speech which is higher than this, higher than 150 words a minute or lower than 150 words a minute, now there could be a problem. What could be the problem? For example, I am teaching you about voice qualities. One of the quality is rate of speech. Now if I start talking to you with that rate, you will feel that okay, there is something wrong with the lady. And if it is a regular practice, if I'm usually talking to you at that rate, then maybe you'll try avoiding me because it gets very boring for you. It's very monotonous. There is no interest that you have in the things that I'm listening to, if I'm talking to, because the rate of speech is too slow, is too low. And if I'm talking in a speech at a rate which is like this, we can define voice qualities as volume, rate of speech, pitch, rhythm, pronunciation, enunciation. Wherein volume, if high is attention seeking, if low, it is considered to be a sign of weakness. Rate of speech, if it is 150 words per minute, it is standard. If it is higher than that, it is abnormal. If it is lower than that, it would give a certain expression again. And then pitch has to be always subtle. So if I start talking to you in that rate, or maybe higher than that also, that means I'm using a lot of words in a minute. Now, why do we have to do this kind of a study on words, the number of words that we're speaking? The reason being that the human brain is a kind of machine. It's a processor. Now, whenever you are giving signals to a certain processor, it has its own pace with which it can deal with the signals. Suppose you are speaking 150 words a minute, would mean there is defined gap between the two words that you have. For example, suppose this is my voice signal. This means that this is the gap that I'm maintaining between the two words. Suppose this is a standard, right? These are words, word number one, and this is word number two. And in between two words, I am having this kind of gap. This is suppose X. Now, with this gap, my brain is well trained and accustomed and processed to this particular signal. The moment you give it a signal like this, means you're delaying the information a lot. Your mind is idle. It got one word here, it got another word here. Maybe if this is X plus, say, 10. And if it is x plus 10, then maybe for this plus 10 time, the fraction of time that it is, maybe for this time your mind wandered elsewhere. It got deviated because it did not get any signal, and mind can never be empty, right? So you're giving that distraction yourself to the minds of the audience because you're involving a lot of pause in between your speech, because of which your speech is tending to be boring and monotonous for them. And you're giving them a room to get distracted. Likewise, if you are adopting a rate of speech which is this, which is very kind of, hodgepodge, or maybe it is this close, right? Now what is happening is, ideally the mind had to have this X gap in between the two words. Now you have reduced this gap, means there are signals that are overlapping. The words are overlapping. This is happening like this. So it is all overlapping because you're not giving ample gap in between the words. Because they're not giving ample of gap, therefore your signals will overlap each other, they will superimpose on each other, and the moment there are two signals that have been merged, your brain will not be able to interpret that information. It will not be able to comprehend that information, and ultimately the audience will not understand the things that the speaker is saying. Most of the times, I guess or everybody of you would have encountered in your life a person like this, who's maybe having a very high rate of speech, and you struggle most of the times to interpret what the person is saying. And then you would have heard people speaking in a very low rate of speech, and then you would say that okay, this would have been complete in a minute, and the fellow has taken 15 minutes for that 1 minute thing. So you started feeling that you start to feel that it is a wastage of time. Therefore, this rate of speech component of voice quality is really very important. The third is pitch. Pitch is often equated with emotions. High pitch, that is a shriek, that is a very loud kind of shrill voice. It indicates either excitement or maybe nervousness. Low pitch would usually command attention, or maybe it would command respect, because it kind of indicates that the speaker is in control of the situation. So pitch will define emotion. If you are excited, if you are in excitement, you maybe you are studying, and all of a sudden, um, with no news beforehand, suppose your sibling who is in the US has all of a sudden came in front of you. He has all of a sudden come in front of you, and looking at that person, because you were off guard, you did not anticipate the presence of that person there, and all of a sudden you saw that fellow there in front of you, and you're very fond of that person, you will be shouting. So that pitch gets increased. It's a high pitch then, showing excitement. All of a sudden, suppose you're going through this lecture, and you know that all the reptiles are hibernating. All of a sudden you found that from the fan, maybe from the sealed portion of that fan, a lizard all of a sudden drops on the mobile phone or on the laptop that you're using for studying. You will again create a shrill shriek. Ah! So this pitch that you now created, which this now tells the people who could listen to your to the sound that you produced, that because it was that kind of a pitch, either you're very excited or you were nervous about something, because all of a sudden it has caught you off guard. Therefore, you were kind of nervous about it. Therefore, pitch change can define emotions of a certain person. Then we go to rhythm. Rhythm refers to the pattern of voice. What is pattern of voice? Whether the pattern is regular or whether is it irregular, whether it flows smoothly or moves in with kind of fits and starts. So this is the rhythm. It usually has to be regular, spontaneous, and smooth. A smooth rhythm, if you're employing smooth rhythm, maybe moderately low pitch, it would indicate confidence, it would indicate an authoritative attitude and an uneven rhythm. For example, you're using a rhythm that is uneven. The pattern of voice that you're using is irregular. It may maybe it would give out a meaning that you're ill prepared for a certain delivery, or maybe you don't have clarity on the topic that you're speaking on. So therefore, rhythm decides the pattern you're using for speaking, that decides whether you're confident about it, whether you're an authority, or whether you're not clear with the things, or whether you have lack of preparation on that topic. For example, now suppose till this rhythm thing, suppose I had adopted a certain volume with a certain rate of speech with a certain normal moderate pitch, and my rhythm also was regular, my pauses were regular, and there was nothing extraordinarily you know alarming in the pattern that I was using to communicate with you. All of a sudden, while I'm shifting and moving to pronunciation and enunciation, now all of a sudden I have changed my rhythm. Change my rhythm means that the pattern will change. Pattern, how will it change? All of a sudden, suppose I have started faltering while speaking. So you would definitely know that because the pattern of speech has changed, therefore there is something wrong. Now, this also you would have encountered for the people who maybe I don't know whether your generation has had that kind of experience or not, but I think you would have had. We used to have those tape recorders, cassette players, wherein we used to put that cassette on the in that particular tape, the recorder, and then it used to play back the songs or whatever the recorded thing was. Now, at times there was a very unique kind of a sound that used to get produced there. So that is the change of rhythm. The moment you have that change of rhythm, you know that there is something wrong. For example, I hope you've seen the movie Three Idiots. Now there, when that fellow who tried to attempt the suicide and he jumped off that building. Now when the two other actors, R. Madhavan and Amir Khan, they were talking to that fellow who was in coma. The way they showed that particular scene, that they were talking in normal voice, but then the way it was reaching the person who was in coma, it was very weird. So that is the irregular pattern that we're talking about. So the moment you have irregular pattern of your rhythm would mean something. What is that something? If it is moderately okay and low kind of rhythm, would mean that you're authoritative. You know that even if you are adopting that low rhythm, low pattern of your speech, people will listen to you because you're an authority. You'll be sounding confident. If in case you're rushing up with things, your speech is not regular, is not showing regular patterns, in that case then it will either show lack of preparation or lack of clarity. So rhythm plays a very vital role. The last is pronunciation and enunciation. Pronunciation is the correct oral delivery. We are speaking things, we are speaking some words, and we are correctly delivering them. So that is pronunciation. Uh, for example, if you have any vowel sound syllables, you need to speak those vowel sounds, utter those vowel sounds in a correct manner. Vowel sounds, for example, you, the vowel sound for you is a, umbrella, not umbrella, right? The moment you're pronouncing it as umbrella means now you're not giving a proper syllable or a proper vowel sound to that vowel that you're using in your word. So that is pronunciation. The way you speak orally the words is pronunciation. There are people, we will find people in our lives who mispronounce words. So they usually are not treated as very well educated, and the moment there is somebody who's pronouncing all the words very very immaculately perfectly, then you would have an impression that yes, this is an educated person, that is why he's pronouncing all the words properly. So therefore pronunciation plays a very vital role while you're delivering something in public or to anybody else. If not public, then even if you're writing it or maybe speaking with your very close acquaintance also, in that case, if you're mispronouncing things, the person will know that maybe you're not very comfortable using that word or language. And if you're doing it flawlessly, then of course the person will have a different kind of a impression for you. And then enunciation, it relates to the correctness of how a word is pronounced. This is the articulation that we give to the word. Poor enunciation, if you're using, they will they will drop word ending. For example, suppose I'm saying I will do this, and then the people who involve more into slang and things, they'll say I'll do that or I'll do this. So this, they've eaten up the things, they have not given proper ending to the words. I'm going there. So going, that G has to be there. The sound of G, which is G, has to be there. The moment you're adopting some foreign accent, you will say, I'm going there. So going there means you've just eaten that G. So the enunciation is not clear. The articulation of your voice, that is dropping the words at the very end of it, should be always avoided in order to have a good, clear enunciation. Articulation of the word is important. The moment you are having poor enunciation would give an impression that you're careless about things. And if you're overly emphasizing on something, means you are pretentious. If you are very, kind of on every word that you're speaking, and if it seems that you are putting a lot of effort in speaking, that would mean that you're a fake personality, you're pretending to be somebody else, or maybe you don't mean that but still you're saying things. So enunciation and pronunciation, those though are closely linked, but they are different in a way and are very important while you're delivering any information to any people. Voice qualifiers, as I discussed, these are temporary variations that happen in pitch, rate of speech, and volume. So these are only the temporary. This is not a permanent thing. This is not the normal, usual, regular kind of pitch, rate of speech, and volume that you have. This is a certain change that happens, and sudden and temporary change that happens. Suppose you're aware of my normal voice qualities. You are aware that I what kind of pitch and emotions do I have while talking. You are aware that what is the rate of speech that I'm using. You are aware that what is my usual moderate volume regularly that I'm using in my delivery of lectures or whenever I'm interacting with you. So you are aware of all the things, right? Now, if something happens to me while delivering a lecture, suppose the example that I was giving, suppose there was a hibernating lizard and all of a sudden it falls on my it falls on my maybe hands. So I know that I'm in a certain setup wherein I can't afford to shout. But then, of definitely, there'll be a change in the rate of speech. If not the pitch, my rate of speech will change. Right? Suppose I'm teaching you, you are there in the class, the windows were open, we were in the ground floor, there are a lot of monkeys because the university is very close to Rajaji National Park. And suppose while I'm delivering the lecture, standing at one end of the class and at the farthest end, because the windows were open, there were four monkeys who have come inside. Now maybe I am not a very kind of a person who has very prompt responsive to things. I'm a bit laid back on responses, suppose. So maybe because of that, my rate of speech will change, my volume will change, my pitch may also change. That temporary change, that point in time, will definitely make you or help you detect that yes, there is some problem right now, because this is not a regular pitch, rate of speech, or volume that the lady has. Therefore, any temporary variations that you have in pitch, rate of speech, and volume will tell the person that there is something wrong. For example, suppose you had gone out partying somewhere and you got late while coming, and during your travel from that place to your home, maybe your friends were along and they were telling you all kind of excuses to tell to your mother or your father that okay, maybe you'd say that one of us met with an accident, suppose, and you were there catering to the needs and catering to the person who had met with an accident. Now if you reach your home and you know that your father is very strict and he asks you upfront, where were you, boy? I am very sure that there'll be a change in the rate of speech because, of course, you are afraid of that person. Because of course, there is there is a respect factor which will not allow you to tell lies to that person, but because you need to be at a safer position, you still are lying. So there'll be a rate of change issue, there'll be volume fluctuations, there'll be pitch fluctuations also. And these fluctuations, these variations that which are temporary, which is not your usual characteristic, they will tell your dad or your mother or whosoever you were interacting with that yes, this is not the correct information. So temporary changes that are happening to pitch, rate of speech and volume are known as voice qualifiers. Now, vocal characteristics, these are the audible sounds. Audible means which can be heard. So, audible sounds which serve to communicate some meaning. Every audible sound that we produce, it communicates some meaning. For example, sigh, as I explained, suppose this lecture is over, you're not interested in attending it, you had to because you had to, there was no other option with you. Therefore, the moment the lecture ends, it will be, or maybe, uh, you know, all of a sudden you got excited about a certain news and then again you're producing a certain voice, so that again is a vocal characteristic. You're laughing at something would definitely tell your audience yes that you're happy. You're crying over something, you need not tell the person that you're sad about something, you're crying, the sound that you're producing while crying, that of course will tell the people who are watching over you, or maybe who are observing you, or maybe who were just passing by, that yes, this fellow is in some kind of sad mood, and that's why that sadness is making him cry. You're groaning because you've got hurt, you're whistling because you're excited about something, you're happy about something, you are happy, or you may be introspecting, and at times we introspect and we whistle, and maybe you saw somebody passing by who was very kind of appealing, and all of a sudden it was a default, it was a very impromptu kind of a reaction, and you started whistling. And clearing of throat, as I explained, it could be made so that you sound confident while you're delivering a speech, or it could be also that you lack clarity or you lack subject knowledge and you are asked to speak on a certain thing, and you're just buying time. You maybe, in order to boost yourself, you're just clearing your throat. So these are all vocal characteristics, the audible sounds that help the audience to get the meaning of the sounds. So all the kind of sounds that have a certain meaning are called as vocal characteristics. Vocal fillers and segregates. Vocal fillers are meaningful words that we are in a habit of using in the sentences, in between or at the very end of the sentence. But usually, whenever we are involving fillers in the sentences that we're speaking, they have to be avoided, because though they are meaningful, but still they are still fillers. What are fillers? What is your perception? Maybe if you've seen those the stage performances, maybe you're watching some awards, and then there was one award been given, and maybe the people who you had to call for giving away the awards are not there, so you'll just fill up that gap in between with some performance. That's a filler. Likewise, in the English language, there are certain words, though are meaningful words, but then you use them to fill up that gap between the sentence that you've just finished and the sentence that you're about to speak. So just to fill up that awkward gap that would might creep in if you're not using any words, because you feel that this gap will be annoying to my audience, you're trying to fill that gap with certain words that are meaningful, and these words that are meaningful are, when used, are known as fillers, vocal fillers. They have to be avoided by all means, because even if you're not employing them in your speech, the speech is well understood. So there is absolutely no room for these, but still it is agreeable upon that you can still, though not advice, but then you can still use such words, because still they have some meaning. Like for instance, the word right. You've understood, right? Okay. Meet me at the coffee shop, okay? Even if you don't say okay or right, the audience will understand the meaning. Even if I ask you, you've understood, it's absolutely clear to you. I have no kind of urgent need to use this right. Again, okay it can be made obsolete there. Is something that people use. It was a big bear. Why you know? How would he know? And if he knows, why are you telling him that? So that this you know also is a filler. Like, Suneri is a fan of yours, like forever. So this like is what? Absolutely not required. If you've seen Dhoom, this was a dialogue that Aishwarya Rai Bachchan spoke to to Hrithik Roshan, that Sunehri is a fan of yours, like forever. So like forever means nothing. It's a meaningless, though it is a meaningful word, but it is not a welcome here. Even if you are just saying Sunehri is a fan of yours, it is well understood and interpreted and comprehended by the audience. Therefore, can be avoided. Basically, this is actually, basically, usually, these are certain words that are very often used by a lot of people which have to be avoided. So basically, I'm from Dehradun. What is basically there? Even if you say I'm from Dehradun, is well understood, is well taken. You don't have to use the word basically. I mean, you're the best. I mean the best. Why? Even if you wish to lay more emphasis on the word best, you can say you are the best. Or maybe if not like that, you can always put as you're the best, the best. It emphasizes upon the things without using words that are absolutely not required in the sentence. And like for instance, well, if I ask you your name, what is your name? Well, my name is Bond, James Bond. Why well? My name is Bond, James Bond does the work. Why use well? So these are all the fillers which have certain meanings, but even if you remove them from your speech, they will not harm anything, they will not change the meaning, because they are not a welcome in the speech. Therefore, they have to be avoided. Going to the segregates. Segregates are meaningless words. Because they're meaningless, they have to be by all means avoided in the speech. For example, the words like will you lend me some money, please? Because you're not very, confident. Maybe you're embarrassed at asking people for lending you money. Therefore, you're using such vocal segregates which are meaningless. Has no meaning. So, will you lend me some money? Absolutely not required. Will you lend me some money, please? You can always show that hesitation in the way you're intoning your things, in the way you're putting emphasis and not putting emphasis on things. But then there is absolutely no need of using such meaningless words in the sentence. Like, for instance, can't seem to recall the answer. Suppose I ask you a question and you say that I can't really seem to answer that, recall that answer. So what you've done is something that is meaningless. It's a segregate, and then really is not of course required. I said can't really seem to recall the answer. Really is not required. That's a filler that you're using. Such kind of words have to be avoided in case you need to be effective in your communication. Like the words my dog ate all the food. Maybe you had kept the entire packet of pedigree and it was left open and well in reach of that dog, and it just came. It did not have any kind of knowledge of how much is to be eaten, and because it relishes it, the pedigree, it ate it all. And because it has, consumed all the pedigree at one go, and you're like, it has eaten it. Right? So this also, it is a kind of conjecture, it is a kind of expression, it is a kind of interjection. But even if you don't do that, even if you're avoiding such words and making it an expression of interjection, the in the other ways and means, things will be better comprehended. For example, my dog ate all the food. Again, it's an interjection, and with the way I'm emphasizing on things, it is making it pretty clear to the audience that what exactly do I mean. I need not add the words like and then if somebody is saying something to you, or maybe your mother is giving you some instructions and you're saying means what? It has no meaning, right? I like the pink. I like the pink dress. So means you're trying to emphasize on the fact that you like pink. So I like the pink dress. I like the pink dress. So the way you are putting emphasis, or you are articulating your voice and you're articulating the words that you're using, that defines the meaning. You absolutely don't have to use meaningless words like and others in your speech. Likewise, or the way the example that I gave. Oh, the baby is so cute. Why? Oh, the baby is so cute. It expresses the happiness that you have while watching the baby. It expresses that you're feeling good about something. Why we use expressions that are meaningless? So whenever you're talking to people, try avoiding fillers and segregates, and segregates is something that has to be avoided by all means. In no in no kind of communication would we entertain segregates, because it gives a weak impression. It gives an impression that because you're not able to manage the gap well, maybe you're not able to manage that intonation well, therefore you're using such meaningless words in the sentences. But that does not allow you to use fillers, because just because of the fact that they have meaning, though they have meanings, but even if you don't use such words, your sentence will be less bulkier, and of course it will be equally comprehensive, equally, the audience will be equally able to understand it well without the fillers as well. So these two things are not a welcome when you're speaking. Still the fillers will do because they are meaningful, but meaningless words like these, or any other for that matter, have to be by all means avoided. This ends the paralanguage component of nonverbal communication. And with this, I will end this lecture here. In the lectures that follow, I'll be discussing kinesics, which is the movement of body, the entire body, maybe only hands, or maybe the facial expressions or eyes. And then I also will be discussing with you proxemics, which has been derived from the word proximity, which is nearness or closeness to something. So these two components of nonverbal communication will be discussed in the lectures that follow. Thank you so much for paying your attention to this particular lecture. I hope you've understood the things. If you've not, please keep the things noted, and you can ask the things that you could not understand through any of the means that I'm approachable with. Thank you so much. Have a good day ahead, and wish you a very happy new year.